We're up and running.
All right, so it looks like we've got the number one seed sitting down. I see Scott there. I recognize Scott's deck box from his previous match. But to everybody on the Twitch, to everybody on the stream, thanks for being with us through 7 rounds of Swiss so far. I'm joined by Keith Bursack here. Keith, feel free to say hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here for the playoffs.
Yes, this is the first round of the playoffs. Scott went an impressive 7-0. Always a lot of pressure on you. He's going up against Marcel the GOAT, and I can tell because Marcel has taken the time to get sealed in plastic and graded his Kingpin hero card, which Scott Flint immediately laid down and Marcel immediately stood back up. So a little fun ribbing. Scott was talking a lot of smack to Marcel in the chats leading up to this. Very friendly banter, but was definitely giving it to him. So I'm going to go through the top 8 real quick. So Scott Flint was the only 7-0, and what I think, Keith, is really fascinating about this, there were no 6-1s. Everybody else who made it was 5-2 or less. So AJ out of Ohio, 5-2. I love seeing AJ in second place. Justin Sadie went 5-2. I'm not sure. This is definitely Justin's first top 8 this season. He did not top 8 in Oklahoma. He did not top 8 in Canada. And I think this is possibly Justin's first top 8 ever. So I'd love to see him get out of the first round. Derek Bertrand, always a top competitor. We saw his brother Tyler play. Derek has been playing a super innovative deck design where he doesn't play events. He only plays 51 cards, which is the minimum without events. And he only plays one copy of most cards in his deck, and he has a lot of draw mechanics, so he's almost certain to never draw duplicates when he draws cards, and he has been seeing a lot of success with that deck build. After Derek, we've got Greg Costa, also finished at 5-2. I love seeing that. Greg, I was saying earlier, is a little newer to the game. He's only been playing, I want to say, about 3 to 4 years. But he had never played back in the old tournaments. And he's gotten really serious about it lately. But Greg comes from the Magic, the Gathering background, and is always playing some really interesting, innovative decks. I think Keith looks like we just lost him for a second, so we'll get him back in a second. Oh, there he is. He's back. Welcome back, Keith. So I was just saying, Greg Costa came in 5th at 5-2. Greg always has really innovative deck designs. Phil Miller managed to come in at 4-3. Or sorry, he was 5-2. He had the bye first round, counts as a win, so he was a 5-2. And the 2 4-3s that made it. There's always tiebreakers when you have a lot of 4-3s, like we did. So Chris Venya and Marcel, the OP GOAT, are the 7th and 8th seed, respectively. So the way it pairs up, we are seeing the number 1 undefeated seed, Scott, play the number 8 seed, Marcel. So these guys are shuffling up their decks. We have got to see both of these decks on camera before. Scott doing a Cadillac variant where he's subbing in Inhumans instead of Starjammers to get that 3rd backup on his 8. And Marcel, Keith, what do you think Marcel's doing here with his Kingpin?
I don't know. I think he's rubbing it over his deck for luck.
So he seems to be giving his deck the blessing of the Kingpin.
Yes.
And he has officially presented it to be cut by Scott. I can't see what Scott's saying, but Scott's not sure what to do, I think.
I'm sure it's a supporting, loving comment.
So, Keith, Marcel has made it a point of playing that Xavier Protocol Basic Universe card. I'd love to hear your comments on that as well.
Well, just that he's using it, or that it's one of the overpower inserts, the classic inserts.
Basically both. That it's a nice flex of Marcel to be playing a card that is sold most recently on eBay for over $500 in his tournament deck, when he could be playing a 5-cent version of the card that's identical. So
Yeah.
Respect that.
Yeah, Marcel does like his bling.
Marcel is repositioning his Kingpin, his graded sealed Kingpin again to overlook his deck. Scott sticking with his cut 1 card off the top of the deck to the bottom of the deck strategy. He's drawn his 8 cards. Marcel is putting his Scott is playing any heroes. He looks to have drawn his fairy protection, is locked out one per deck as the one in his first hand. So that's going to give him a real good advantage to get that placed early on. It's going to make it really hard for Marcel to create KO pressure against such a defensive deck to begin with.
Decks do seem primed to clash pretty nicely. It looks like Marcel's playing the Fatal Attractions event. Sorry, the Fatal Attractions events mission set. Likely the no energy power cards, right?
Yep,
The
no
no
cards
energy
with an energy
icon.
icon can be used to
Yeah,
attack.
yeah, that's gonna really hurt Scott when that comes up.
And likewise, Scott's playing the classic Shattered Image with a negator, so we can assume he's probably only playing no activators. I have to say, with the starting hand that I can see Scott has, he looks like he's definitely got some heat right off the bat, but I think we're going to see how Marcel plays this. I think this goes back to what we just said about watching the Nick and Tyler match. I think the way that Marcel's going to need to play against this deck Marcel's got some really big hits. He's got a 9, he's got a 7, he's got an 8. I think Marcel's going to have to make Scott fight these early rounds if he's going to have a chance of winning against that deck in the long term.
Yeah, you can just let that defensive shell get built up, but it's hard getting through it.
Yep. That's exactly right. Once if that Cadillac deck, and he's playing a more defensive version with the Royal family. If he can get one of each defensive card on those 4 characters and a lockout, it sometimes that alone can just be an insurmountable mountain to overcome. All right, Marcel
Well,
has called. He's done placing with only placing 4 cards. This gives Scott a chance to really place out. So Scott has got a 2-card placing advantage on Marcel, but Scott did discard 1/7, and Marcel didn't have any discards. So Scott's going to get the chance to go first because he's the top seed. He's only going to go 1. So he's signaled to Marcel that he wants to run. What do you think Marcel's going to do here, Keith?
Well, Marcel's kind of adding it all up, and I think he's gonna venture 2 at least.
Yeah, it's real a question of, Marcel does not want to let him run here, but he does have the negate to sort of deal with the 9. It's really a question if Marcel thinks he can defend his guys enough and make Scott pay for having that duplicate. Marcel knows he can't put that KO pressure on with the fairy protection placed, but if he can get through that in the negate, so he's got at least 2. He's thumbing a 3rd, but he's done it. Going for a 3rd, he's going to give Scott a draw. Scott looks. Go ahead, Keith.
Oh yeah, I was just saying. Yeah, he did. He's getting the option of drawing the 1 card.
It doesn't look like he looks like he's contemplating it. It looks like he's kept a 9 or less of void in his hand to try to hide it. He is going to take the card. He is going to look at it. It looks like it's the confusion. The captain. It looks like it was the captain hook card. Now that card could easily be a dead card versus Keith right now. Jeez, Keith, I'm sorry. I want you to play in every game apparently. Against Marcel, Captain Hook could be a dead card. So Scott shows the 4. He was most likely throwing that against the reserve to allow Spawn to throw all his attacks against Silver Sable. Marcel can't allow that to happen. That basically makes Silver Sable's avoids useless for a good part of the game. So he's going to use the hand and he's going to defend it with a 6 any power. Ooh, interesting.
Go try to draw 3.
Do you think so?
Oh no.
Oh,
He's using that to go get something from Mr. Fantastic.
probably Mr. Fantastic's draw 3. Great play. I was thinking he was going to try to target the fairy protection with the opponent discard a placed card and either draw out the negate or get rid of the big defensive card. But
Yeah, that's true. That's probably a better one. You don't want to draw 3 and then he just concedes and you don't even get to use it.
now Marcel did go 3. If he hasn't played, he's got an even placing advantage right now. Or no, he's down 1 card. But all right, Scott's gonna let the skeletal summoning go through. So Marcel's gonna get a card out for Mr. Fantastic. I don't see a scenario where he doesn't get the draw 3 here.
I mean, he could get
The
the
re-
pin.
He could, but with that fair, I mean, maybe he wants whatever he gets. It's an interesting idea here that he must have a plan to get around the negate. Otherwise, I feel like he should have just targeted the negate with the opponent discard a card and played a little bit of a longer game against him. Getting rid of that negate with the opponent discard a placed card really opens up, so he's going to have to lock out against the 9, and the 7 is online for being thrown at someone other than Inhumans. What's your prediction, Keith? What do you think he got?
I think he got the pin. And this way he can pin whoever it is. I can't tell whoever it is in the top.
Inhumans?
Yeah, that has the 7 on him. Because you can
Yep.
pin the 7, you can pin the teamwork. And this way, then you either suck out the one per deck avoid or the negate for that.
If you double click the screen, you know you can blow up the screen with the actual game too. Just want to make sure you got it full size.
Okay, thank you. I did not know that. Well, that's much.
Did that? Great.
Yes, no,
Yeah.
much better.
Okay. Fantastic. You were probably wondering how I was calling those cards in their hands, barely seeing them.
I figure you maybe had a much bigger screen than I did.
All right. So Marcel's starting off with a pretty decent sized hit. He's throwing that 7 right away, and that concealed 9 or less avoid that Scott kept in his hand is going to avoid it. Now, I didn't see what he got, but Marcel's a very good metagamer, and he knows that Scott did not have the defense to really defend Scarlet Witch and Spawn. Nah, he did the draw 3. Okay.
He did the draw right.
Scott, there's a chance Scott lets him draw 3 here and then just runs. Oh, what just happened? Marcel put his hand up and left the table. That's an interesting maneuver that you don't see very often.
When you gotta go, you gotta go.
Well, if that's what it was, their game is at 50 minutes and 30 seconds. So he's either asking a rules question off camera to a judge, or had to run and use the facilities. But nope, he's back. So it must have been a rules question. So he's gonna play the draw 3. I think you're gonna see Scott let him draw, and then Scott's gonna run. That's what I think you're gonna see here.
He's thinking. He's like, wait a second. Oh, okay.
Nope. He let it go through, and then I think you're just gonna see an immediate concede. Marcel looks to be keeping all 3 cards. I don't see any scenario where Scott throws another attack here. Scott will be up. Scott can run here. He knows he's not dealing with the draw 3 later in the game, and he'll be up 1 card on his placing advantage.
Okay, he's getting ready to discard. Okay. Hand activator.
No, I think Scott passed.
And I guess it is 0-0.
Scott's got a confusion in his hand, which is
Mhm.
one of the cards that might be unplayable. Scott's maybe just hoping he can make him eat up a placed card and go into that next hand with placing advantage. What do you think, Keith, of Scott's choice here to continue to fight this fight?
Hmm. No, I mean you can see that Marcel, regardless of what he has in his hand, has 3 big attacks. Okay. That's probably going through the Dark Beast because then he can make the additional fighting attack against somebody else, right? Isn't that 4 make additional fighting against somebody else?
Uh, Let me double check it real quickly if that has to be against a different opponent or not. I'm not as clear on the Daredevil one. I've got Daredevil right here. So that is a
Okay,
4
look,
fighting.
he just took the hit and conceded.
So that one is just make an additional attack. So
Okay,
that's what he did. So he was hoping to get a little bit of that placing advantage. Now there was a line that Scott had there. If he really wanted to get aggressive, He could have let that hit and then allowed Marcel to make another hit, fired back with the teamwork, and then allowed, like at Beast or at Starjammers even, allowed Marcel to throw another card at spawn, lock him out, and that would have left Marcel with two cards that he knew couldn't KO someone else, and he could have fired everything he had at Starjammers to really set him up for the KO. I think if you might have seen that line, if Scott wasn't stuck with an unplayable confusion in hand, or the new version of it that we've created, if he thought that he was going to be able to stop something with that card, I think you might have seen a more aggressive play. But at this point, I think Scott was looking to get out of that hand pretty early. But Marcel did what he needed to do. He made him get down to 4 cards, and he made the Cadillac deck use up his defense. So he's in a more even position.
The 7 fighting he just placed on the Starjammers.
Yep. Starjammers can still place a second special. What an
Second power
amazing
card.
inherent. Sorry, second power card. Thank you, Keith. Fantastic special that gives you a full other placing slot. Inherent. So one thing to keep in mind too, one of the great things about Dracula's Armory, which is what Marcel is playing, it gives you access to those basic universe cards, which are great on defense against decks that are a JW deck or something where you need your 7 character to be able to block an 8. But it's also a really good offensive hedge against the Cadillac deck. The Cadillac doesn't really tend to run many cards that can block a power card with a universe card if it gives above a 9. Spawn's Void doesn't hit it. And none of all the other defenses focus on either lower attacks or special cards. I think in the entire deck, there's only 2 cards that can defend a power card attack with one of those basics. That's the Fairy Protection that he has placed, and the full Avoid Guardian card. That's the Any Hero. So that's Battle Sight is very well positioned against traditional Cadillac decks. The home bases.
See that Marcel did take advantage of the additional power card placement slot on the Starjammers by putting the 4 multi-power.
Absolutely. Now, we talked about this a lot earlier, Keith, and I'd love to hear your insights. I said I always have such a hard time deciding if I'm going to play that 7 or not. Marcel's putting a real bullseye on Dark Beast to where Dark Beast, as long as that 7 is placed on Starjammers, is essentially a max 6 hero at that point.
Right.
What are your thoughts on power card placing? Do you try to get the 7 down? Do you go with lower power cards?
I mean, this one, the 7 power card that one's only in there for the Starjammers. 'Cause, nobody else can play that because the beast only has the 6, fighting the same as the Sable in the bag. I mean, I think you definitely would have to place that on him.
Yeah, it's more of a question of if you place it, you're giving the opponent that knowledge that he can route his attacks through Beast.
Yeah, I mean, but if you have the Starjammers, you probably want that because you want them to not be attacked.
That's a great point. Most people are running less cards for Beast. They tend to be the 9, the Stars and Garters, and the 3 negates. So a lot of people don't play a main deck acrobatics.
Yeah.
So if they can get through a card or 2 and he dies, you're really only going to lose 3. I can't tell how many he went. Looks like just 2, and Scott's just going to go 1. So Marcel being very aggressive against the Cadillac. Marcel's such an experienced player, especially with the amount of top 8 appearances that he's had. Even though Scott's coming into this 7-0 and has been playing very well all day, Marcel is still he's gonna sit down, and every fight he fights, every match he plays, he's gonna be calculating this without any of that as a factor. He's gonna figure out exactly how he would always play this deck, and that's how he's gonna play it. Yep. You see what he's going for, Keith?
It's the discard, right?
What do you think he's going to target?
I think he's going to target the lockout and the void.
I agree. I think he just wants to get, if he can, he places the card down on Scott's side of the board and leaves it there. That is a
It's in the
Marcel
pocket.
move.
Yeah. Always elbowing for extra room at the table.
Now, I didn't see what got played. It looks like Merlin.
Oh yeah, the
Merlin is the
negate.
any hero negate.
I mean, that's still good if you're sucking that out. The
It's
one for deck
definitely
that
good.
negate. Yeah,
It would definitely be better to get rid of the fairy protection, but knowing there's one less negate is helpful. And you have to assume that if he had a Scarlet Witch negate, he would have placed at least one of them.
yeah, yeah.
Now, a lot of
He's
people
used
don't
one.
realize this, but with the new BMG Any Hero Essentials, Power
Mm,
Leech, Grim Reaper. This could be really rough. Now, keep in mind, Marcel will know now if he's called Intellect, he can discard that Intellect basic universe card. So that'll give him one less, but there's a chance this could shred Marcel's placed cards. If Marcel has to get rid of 1 to 2 of those placed actions, that'll put Scott in a position where he can run and then just start leaning on his placing advantage.
something to block.
Very big moment in the match. All right,
Yeah,
Enforcers.
yeah. The acrobatics, right?
Yeah, I believe this one is called Fancy Dan,
Yeah,
and that's going to lock out Mr. Fantastic, so he can only be attacked with universe cards.
it's definitely huge that the Grim Reaper didn't hit.
And that's one of the things with these smaller fields, Keith. You get a player as experienced as Marcel, just ice water in his veins. A player like this, I've seen Phil Keffer do it countless times. He goes 4-3. He's having a rough day. His deck's not playing well. He gets in these playoffs and he doesn't have any nerves. He's been in a playoff position so many times. That is a huge card right there. I think he's got to use the fairy protection on that.
Yeah, that's 22 points of interest he's sitting on right there.
And I think Scott playing the Cadillac, Scott really needs to put those 2 cards that Marcel ventured in the bottom if he can.
Well, he took
He
it. Okay.
lets it hit. Lets it hit. Now he does have a royal family in his hand, so that does count as a hit in the current record. So he can remove that with the royal family later. And Marcel does not have a negate on his battle site. So if Marcel does not have a negate in hand, he can snake out the royal family offensively later, and Marcel may make some plays thinking he's not going to have to deal with those cards. Now, hopefully, one thing I hope Scott doesn't do here, Scott's played the 4 make an additional attack. Scott may try to play the royal family off that. It's a very nuanced thing, but removing a hit with the royal family is not an attack. If he was to do that off the 4, I've seen experienced players make that mistake. He would reveal that he has the royal family in hand, and Marcel will almost certainly know the nuance of that rule and call him on it. But he does not. So good. So Scott knows exactly what he's doing here. Spreading out those fighting hits. Marcel's giving a little shake of his head no, but part of the reason I love playing against Marcel and being in the room when Marcel plays, he can be a very animated, very vocal player about what's going on, and definitely uses that to his advantage. Tries to get in other players' heads, so he's acting like the 2 that's getting thrown against Starjammers is stressful, but He's in a very advantageous position right now.
Okay.
So we've got the royal family in Scott's hand. Marcel plays pretty close to the vest, literally, so I don't have a good idea of what else is in his hand.
Hmm.
Promo 6 fighting.
He's figuring he doesn't need that for defense now that he's pinned down the teamwork.
Absolutely. Keith, you might know this better than me. Where did that 6 power card with the name Wolverine and the fighting on the... Where did that originally get given out? Was that a magazine promo?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I don't want to just guess.
Yep. Fair enough.
Yeah.
So Scott has got a 6 energy in his hand. I think you're going to see him fire that off now. All right, so he blocks the 6 with the 6. He's going to
Yep.
remove the royal family. Marcel's got 2 cards. He's not even reaching for his hand, so I think he has nothing he can do about that. He takes it back.
Yeah.
So that opens the Inhumans back up. 23 points of venture back in play. Marcel looks like he's doing the math himself now.
Yeah.
So Marcel's got a Kingpin activator in his hand. Now we know from earlier, Marcel does have access to his draw 3. So the question is, how much does Marcel want to win this? Marcel could do something where he could fire off his 7 and his 8, use his Silver Sable Avoid, and then try to set up a draw 3 where he really minimizes the amounts that he's going to dupe on it.
I'm trying to see if he can suck out the lockout.
I'd be really surprised with 2 other higher cards if Scott makes the choice to use it here. I think when I have those lockouts, if in this situation, he can fire off a full teamwork string against, say, Beast or Jammers right now, 3 attacks in a row. I think he takes this, fires back with some pressure, and then has that fairy protection to block the next hit that comes through. Now, the disadvantage to that is Marcel can throw the 4 multi and make him use the avoid on the 4 if he plays it that way.
Yeah. It's got just got an awful lot of KO pressure there. In between the 6 energy teamwork, the 4 multi power. I mean, and the fact that it's a teamwork, so it could even get through the enforcers special where they can only be attacked by universe cards. Yeah.
So he's going to fire them all off at Mr. Fantastic. I don't think this is a terrible idea. You know, the one weakness of Marcel's setup is Mr. Fantastic is the only 8 grid character he has. Whereas that's how Scott won the other game that we saw, is he took out both of Chris's characters, left him with 2 max 6, and just leaned on that power card advantage. Marcel doesn't have a great way to attack Scott's grid. He has to take out 3 characters to cut him off from that 8 energy.
Oh, yeah, he's going
All
to use the
right.
Daredevil lock out the from being attacked with universe cards. Nice.
So that essentially is a 2-card combo that creates a full lockout. There's no further cards that can be used by Scott to attack Mr. Fantastic this battle.
Well, that's helpful because as we know, the one fighting isn't going to make any difference other than toward venture. Okay, so yeah, he's throwing that. That comes in as a six.
And Marcel's working with perfect information here.
Mm.
Interesting. That really
Yeah,
surprises me.
I thought he would have saved that for the Inhumans.
Because he may be thinking that he has to route that. I forget what that character's name is. It's Maxis the
Yeah,
Madman.
Maximus the Man. Yeah, Black Bolt's
Maximus the
brother.
Mad. That opens up the path now. He can't throw it against Mr. Fantastic. In playing Dracula's Armory, if he throws it against Starjammers, the 7 can actually combine to block it, but it's an auto hit right now on Beast. And this is exactly what we said. Marcel's going to throw that at spawn. This is the disadvantage of the aggression. He has to use the
Yeah,
lockout on the 4 now, exactly as we said. Now Scott, Marcel doesn't have speed, so it's a real question of he can kill Beast flat out, no questions asked. It's a question of if he's willing to. No one has any defense at this point, so he's going to put Marcel to a decision where Marcel's going to have to lose Beast to win this venture and go up to 5-2.
unless Scott's going to run away, then Marcel would be able to knock out either Inhumans or Scarlet Witch. Because look, I mean, he's still got the 7, the 8, the 9 sitting there.
He does, but Scott's got the pacing, so Scott only needs to take 2 offensive actions, and
Yeah,
he knows Marcel can't block anything because he has no cards in hand, so he can kill Beast, only take 2 cracks back, and then run.
right. Oh, I wonder if
There
this
we
is
go.
drone
So
3.
Marcel's gonna play it now, and he's gonna really hope he draws some kind of defense for that 9. This is where what do you think? Oh, he's
He's
blessed.
right. Look at him. He's exactly.
This is again where I really don't know if I agree with the play. Well, and there we go. So I saw a flash of it. I'm almost positive he drew the 9 or less avoid for Sable. So
Mm,
I was just about to criticize the decision to use it, and I think it's
well,
going to end up being the right decision because I think he drew one of them.
yeah.
He must have drawn a power card also, and he's contemplating using the. Now, I don't really know what the decision here is. It seems like it's an auto avoid with the 9 or less and just fire back with whatever's in your hand. I mean,
Right.
Scott's down to a 1 fighting, which is inconsequential. So he makes the play.
Right. Because
He's
then the
gonna
one's not chaos.
he's gonna fire back with something. I think he drew the negate. So another interesting thing he could do here is he could just negate the fairy protection, not use any of his placed cards. If I'm not sure if his other card's not an attack, he could if he
Yeah, but
negates that
he
fairy
doesn't even
protection.
need. Yeah. Oh.
Oh, it's a teamwork. No, that's a much better play. He's
Oh
gonna
yeah,
paint
yeah, yeah.
Scarlet Witch with 2 hits, be ahead
At
on
least one.
venture.
Yeah.
The other card in his hand, I believe, is a negate. So Scott has no decisions at this point. He has nothing he can do. Scott
Mm,
immediately runs, and
yeah.
Marcel
Oh. Now
Marcel goes up
venturing.
to 5-2 and reveals the negate in his hand.
Yeah.
I'll never count out a version of the Cadillac, but I think if in the archives of Overpower, you're seeing from Marcel, this is a textbook way that you play against the Cadillac. You have to make them fight early. You have to make sure they don't have a placing advantage. You just have to go at it aggressively. You can't bet low and run away. Now I see on top, this could be really rough for Marcel. This could get him back into it. Scott has got his no activators event on the very top. He's about to reveal it to Marcel, and that can swing a hand. If Marcel's got a lot of activators, he could end up easily with 3 to 4 discards out of his hand, and that'll give Scott a chance to make a big bet and catch up. So he reveals it right now. He's going to redraw for that event. Draws the 8 multi. Marcel has at least a Daredevil activator. I can't see the rest of his hand.
I'll have to get this card.
Ooh, looks like it just gets the Daredevil activator. That's a tough break. That really puts Scott in a tough place to be able to win this hand. Now, one thing Scott's got in his hand that's great is Scott does have the Fortress of Solitude. If he can get around a Beast Negate, he could bet 2 here. Marcel's going to almost certainly bet 2 for the win. He could get Marcel to take damage and let characters die, and then reset the venture at the end of the hand and make the whole venture of the hand be for nothing.
Marcel chooses to not place anything.
Yeah, if Scott's smart, that is a placeable card. If Scott is smart, he's not going to place that card.
Right.
Looks like Scott's got a negate. He's got the 8 multi on the Inhumans. He's definitely got the Fortress of Solitude. He may have a kin. He looks like he's got another. What was that, Keith?
The A next I saw that he just placed. Yeah.
Now the big thing Scott's in trouble with is Marcel knows from playing Dracula's Armory, he's already seen the fairy protection go by. If Scott has not drawn his Guardian, Mr. Fantastic can throw that 8 with a +3 power card for the kill on Scarlet Witch, and there's nothing Scott's going to be able to do to block it. There's 1 card in his deck currently with any heroes capable of defending that. Or if he is playing...
Avoid a numerical for Scarlet Witch if he's going.
Oh, he is playing Avoid a Numerical. We did see that in the earlier match. So there's 2 cards, and I haven't seen if he's playing the Shift. So there's potentially 3 cards that can deal with that 8+3 coming over the top. But I think if you're Marcel, you try to just throw it at Scarlet Witch now, get 2 cards out of there, and
but then again, don't forget that you get the -5 to the venture. So I mean, even if you're throwing that 8, then you're still only up 3 points, even though you're getting rid of the 3 and the 6 placed on her.
But you're eliminating 9 points of placed venture, so that's basically a +4. So it's still a 12-point positive venture if that goes through, and you get rid of any chance if he's got a negate in hand. You know that he can't negate that 9 anymore. He has to use a royal family or again another any hero card. So it'll be really interesting to see. A next for the K, and any frontline hero can make an attack. He's gonna let him die. Probably not the worst idea. He needs that 8 energy in his hand for offense to generate venture, and it doesn't look like he's got any spawn specials. This is game point for Marcel, so... Oh, wow. Oh, wow. All right, he's got the negate. So I think we're definitely going to see the negate fired off. Right.
Yeah.
We couldn't see Marcel's hand, but that is heat. Having the Raza. So if you guys don't know, Raza discards all cards placed to a character, and that character can attack. That would have made it so any Teamworks or Ally cards in Scott's hand would have been useless. Marcel does have a 6 any power in his hand, so he can definitely block that, and that's what he's going to use. That's Zeus from the Any Heroes Essential. That's the Zeus sketch. It's you'll notice it's the sketch of the 8 energy foil card. Now this is a 4 if it hits all the placed cards are discarded off Beast, and he's going to use that Silver Sable 9 or less Avoid. I think Marcel, is that a negate? He has the negate too, so if Scott can't get rid of Beast and he's counting on that being able to fortress that hit. All right, so Scarlet Witch is going to go down. Her inherent's still relevant, but he does lose that 6 venture, which really hurts.
Here comes the 4th. Well, he still got the 8 multi.
He's going to throw the 8 multi, which I think is a great play. Well, do this first. Sometimes you can get
Right.
around the negate if he just doesn't have something that can defend beast, and I think he doesn't. I know Marcel. I know that look when he starts to flick the cards. He just can't. He can't use it, and he's going to lose access to that negate, and that's going to open up the fortress. This is going to be a brutal turn at the end. Marcel's going to have to play another hand, and he's going to be down the beast, and he's just not going to be ready for it. But Scott's also going to be down two of his main characters. So, what do you think at this point, Keith? Who are you calling it for still?
I think Scott's going to be able to get the fortress off. Mm.
Look at the look on Marcel's face. He's going to throw that 8 energy next and take out Starjammers, and he's going to. The only thing here that Scott has to be careful of, Scott's aggressively trying to knock out Starjammers. If Marcel can do exactly that, if he can throw 2 cards, he's going to force him to use that 8 energy. Oh, yeah, he has to use it on the teamwork now because the 8's going to come into the 9.
Yeah, he knows you that. Mm.
Mm. Marcel's not going to like this, but look at the grin on Marcel's face. Yep. He had the negate, but he couldn't use it.
Yeah,
What a great hand.
what a swing too. And Marcel gets the advantage of still getting to go first. Wow, now
Marcel
all
still
the
gets to go first. And Scott's got a lot of deck left to be down Spawn and Scarlet Witch. So I still think the fact that
and humans has 16 on
Keith, I'm going to step away for one quick second. My dog's clawing at the
them.
door, but I'm going to be back in
Yeah,
1 second.
that's okay. I'll keep it roll. All right, so Marcel still gets to go first. So Starjammer's being teetering on the edge there. Means he'll get the chance to play any of their cards first if they've only got one. Marcel got his event. Interesting. That's the event that to save the world, Squadron Supreme, where if either player draws or discards cards during the match after the venture, then the other player draws or discards an equal amount. Very effective against the draw deck, even though Marcel's, I think, used all the drawing ability. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
wow. So it looks like Marcel has drawn the no energy icons to attack event.
right. And I don't know if you heard there's the to save the world, so that if either player draws or discards, the other has to draw or discard.
Okay. And just
Yeah.
so people watching know, that does not come into play for the beginning of the hand, only once the battle starts. Is that an effect?
Yeah. Meaning that if you venture and the other person draws, you don't get the den draw as well.
Correct. But if Marcel happened to have the draw 3 in play for, I can't see if he has it, but he's not played the draw 3 yet for the Starjammers. He would essentially allow Scott to draw 3 off it as well.
Well, if you think about it, if he's already lost two of his characters and Inhumans teetering, I mean, it might be worth it. What was that he
So
just
Scott,
placed?
he just placed the new promo card from the last tournament. That allows him to look at his top 5 cards, choose one, and put it in hand, and then reshuffle. Scott's got a royal family in hand, so he can defend a special attack. Marcel looks to be not placing. Marcel's going to bet for the win. He knows he doesn't have to deal with Fortress. He's just going to try to end it now.
And that none of the energy cards can be used to attack. So it's going to be hard for him to score, venture.
This is going to be a real hard battle for. He's got an 8 energy in hand. It looks like he's got a 6 energy in hand. This is going to be a pretty tough. This I think we're looking at the last hand here. I'd be pretty surprised if Scott can pull this out somehow.
But at least if he gets to play that the any hero special, then he'll be able to get something. He can probably draw. Should be able to draw something to get some venture. It comes down to that.
So Marcel does have that draw 3 in his hand, so that is a really interesting event. You may see Marcel just not play it. I could see Marcel.
No, he's playing it right now.
Oh no, he's just firing it off right off the bat. I have to say, I don't know about this. I think in that situation, well, you know what? The fact that he's got 2 dead characters and can attack with cards with an energy icon, Marcel's probably right. The odds that he's going to get playable cards are way less than that Marcel will get playable cards. So it looks like
They don't
2 of
want
them are
to.
discards. I think one's a spontaneous combustion, the other one is a spawn
Yeah,
for
yeah.
multi.
Oh, wow. So definitely worth the gamble. Because did Marcel
Yeah,
get rid of anyone? I don't think he did.
Marcel looked to keep all 3. Now Marcel does have a decent amount of activators, it looks like, so he won't be able to attack with those, but
Okay, yeah.
he's going to allow him to do the Valkyrie card.
Although, doesn't he get to draw? Won't he get to then draw a card at the end of that too? Because of the to save
That
the
is a
world.
really interesting question. I think he's calling the judge to find out right now. I
Yeah.
don't believe it's a draw, though. I believe it's a put the card in your hand.
That's a
So I
place
don't,
for.
I think it just says take a card, take one of them. I don't believe it qualifies as a draw. Okay, so Phil Keffer has just rejoined us. So that card is Valkyrie Hilder, select the slain. Any character may look at the top 5 cards of your draw pile, choose any one card, draw and reveal the chosen card. So if Marcel caught that, which I don't know if he did, he would get to draw a card from the top of his deck when Scott resolves that card. I was looking it up. I didn't see it. Looks like it resolved. Did Marcel draw a card off that?
I don't think he did. He's throwing that as a 9.
Throwing that as a 9, unless he's got the avoid, I think he's just going to kill the Inhumans here.
How you holding up, Joe?
I'm doing okay.
Well, this looks like a barn burner right here. It looked like I saw a little bit of it on my way. It looked like Marcel. Oh, wow! There's the handshake just in
There's the
time.
handshake.
Wow, Scott was 7-0, huh?
Yeah.
And you see that so often. You know, that's he's taunting with the Xavier protocols. He beat him with the classic insert. So, I was saying this before, I think the textbook way that you play against a Cadillac variant, and Marcel just bet aggressively and made him fight every single hand. Scott didn't have a single hand where he could really afford to run. And that's really the danger with people who have this much experience at the game is, you know, they get into this top 8 and they're, you know, it's just another game for them, where sometimes when you're hitting that top 8 for the first time, the nerves get to you, you're tired, you're not used to playing when you're this exhausted. And we've seen it with Phil, we've seen it with Marcel coming in as the 8th seed and then winning the entire thing.
Yeah, I would say Marcel's deck is really set up to hit pretty quickly. He can get those draw 3s off quite fast, and he certainly knows that that event's going to be trouble, which I think I saw only got him for 1 activator, so that was a really, really lucky spot for him too.
And I don't know if you caught it firsthand, but he took a page out of your book, Phil, where he had a lot of great targets placed firsthand, but he opted to use the skeletal summoning to get his Mr. Fantastic draw 3 to ensure that he got his bet of 2 in the first hand.
I did not see that, but I did notice that he had clearly won the first hand or two when I logged on my phone just to check it out.
Scott takes a long pause on his Guardian Angel any hero as he's looking through his deck. You know, that I was saying one of the things that's tough with the Cadillac variants versus Dracula's Armory is you've really only got a handful of cards that can block those power cards when they're thrown above a 9.
Yeah, absolutely. Those 9 or less defense-based teams, especially any hero, are really going to have trouble with that.
So I didn't end up playing it, but that's why my variant of it this time, I was actually running X-Man on the front line, and I think you're going to start to see a shift into variants that use X-Man. Getting those Master Mold EEs off a level 8 character. If the meta is really going to shift to a lot of these Dracula's Armory and Spartan training grounds, I think you're going to start to see characters that can use the E. If you don't know, it allows you to avoid any power card attack. So it basically, instead of a 9, it's a more focused in its range of what it can avoid. But if the meta is throwing large power card attacks at the Cadillac, I think you're going to start to see a lot more people hedge against that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Joe. The other reason that I think that's going to happen is because X-Man is only 17 points, and the decks with X-Man are going to want to try to play those universe home bases as well. So it's going to sort of kill two birds with one stone.
And that was exactly what I was doing. Is I took the extra points I saved from Spawn, and I was going to run. I was using the Dracula's Armory myself to give myself the extra defense or offense when needed.
Well, Scott, you had a great run. 7-0, no small
Yeah.
feat.
Yeah. Yep, definitely nothing to be
Unbelievable.
ashamed of. Great day. Just, ran into Marcel. Happens to everybody.
The Marcel Buzzsaw,
Yeah.
ruining hopes and
He's
dreams.
he's gonna ride that wave in the comments for the next couple of months.
Do we know how the other matches are? Are any of them over?
Yeah. So we have now Marcel versus Phil Miller. We have Chris Vizina versus Derek Bertrand.
Oh,
Sorry. It's AJ versus Derek Bertrand. Sorry.
Oh, that's fantastic. So with that, Greg's a really close personal friend of mine, so I was rooting for him. But I gotta say, my root at this one is AJ. I don't believe AJ's won one of these events. Ronald, it looks like they're gonna jump right into this now.